Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is a place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. I'd like to introduce my good friend. He's returning back onto the podcast, Mr. Antwine Jackson, President and founder of Enitech Solutions. Antwine, how you doing today?
Well, hey man, we're outside. We're just out here having a good time. I appreciate you inviting me back. You know, I had fun the last time, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, no, hopefully we'll get some good context of questions. I know that the last time you were going through a bit of things at that time. You had a new, I think it was either a VA or a new contractor that was helping you at the time. It had a couple obstacles we had to run through, but you showed up, you came in, and we're running through it, baby.
Hey,
so
just another day at the office.
Another day at the office. So appreciate you coming back onto the show here. You know, for those that haven't heard you on the last episode, why don't you talk a little bit about your origin story, take us back to the very beginning, and what inspired you to found Enitech?
Yeah, so, you know, I went to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. During my time in college, I worked for an MSP, really good friend of mine growing up. And, you know, very smart guy, you know, very good mentor to me. Worked for him for many years, and then, you know, he had some bumps in the business, and, you know, there was a period where I did go a little bit of time without a paycheck, and I'm a very loyal to the soil kind of guy. My girlfriend at the time and lovely wife and mother of my children today was pretty much like, look, if I'm going to support you on my nursing salary, you need to be chasing your own dreams and not someone else's. And that was kind of the ultimatum, I would say, for me starting Enitech. And, you know, looking back, you know, it was probably, you know, a lot of us are scared, right? Whether it's, you know, trying to overcome an obstacle or whether it's trying to grow. And that was probably the first moment in my career where I was afraid because I didn't know what the future held. And, you know, I just believed in myself and bet on myself, and then the rest is history.
You know, I love being able to talk about these type of scenarios because I truly believe there is a lot of value for early struggles and understanding on how someone can learn and really figure out how to really piece it together as they grow into that side. And so for the early years of year 1 through 3, you know, why don't you share a little bit about how that feeling during that time? Obviously, you know, and I can go into a little, and people have heard of my story on the early years too, because man, those first 2 years for me were rough. And I'm talking about capital rough. Like, it was just, you know, and I can go through everything of cash flow, freaking lending opportunities that were not opportunities, building credibility, like the whole 9 yards. But, you know, the first 3 years of Enitech, as you started, hit the ground running, talk a little bit about, like, how was that, what you went through, and kind of what, like, helped you, like, grit your teeth in getting into this.
You know, so, like, I think adversity builds character. And I think, you know, it's really interesting, right? Because I meet so many MSPs and I get an opportunity to network with so many. And each person has such a unique and inspiring story, right? And for me, that first 1 to 3 years was a dogfight. Because, you know, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're just trying to have enough money to sustain, you know, just a standard wage of living. You're willing to take on any client that has a pulse and a checkbook. And for me, those first 3 years were really very defining. You know, I think where things really started to change is I have this really great friend of mine. You know, we've been friends for a long time. He was in my wedding. I was in his wedding. He was my first real hire. And I remember when Chris, you know, shout out to Chris White, you know, he came to me and he was like, look, man, I know you can't afford to pay me, but I believe in what the journey you're on. I want to be a part of it. And I mean, I don't mind saying this. I mean, I was paying him like $500 a month. He was burning through savings. But to see someone like that believe in your vision and what you're trying to achieve, it puts a lot of pressure on you for sure. But I think it also fueled the momentum for me to really start to believe in myself. And fast forward today, he's still with the company. And, you know, I think that's when things really started to take off, was when I decided to say, you know what? I can't just bear this load on my own shoulders. I need to have good people around me, and that's been kind of our story the whole time since.
You know, it's funny, right? Like, MSPs always start as like a solo or a small operation, right? As they're trying to build, and they're really trying to get to that point. Like, you know, and I think around that time, I think if I remember correctly, it was break fix early on, and then you had to move into obviously managed services and things of that nature. How did that work? What was the hardest of being able to scale and moving into a model that was comfortable for you, but also as you brought people on?
Yeah, so I think it goes back to the concept, like, right, of being scared. And I think a lot of times we put up these mental roadblocks, right? And I think a lot of times what we always think is we think that we play these conversations through our heads over and over again. So going from like break, fix to managed services, the first thing you think is, oh man, these clients are going to leave me, which is not true. If you do good work and you have a customer base that believes in you and you deliver high quality service, guess what? Those clients aren't going anywhere. If anything, they're going to follow you on the journey. And I think that first awkward conversation, because I'm very bad at talking about money, and my wife will tell you this all day long, I think for me it was about taking the time to have the courage to have open and honest conversations. It's all about transparency, man. And I think like if you're transparent with your clients and you're just open and honest, guess what? They're running a business also, and you have to explain to them that you can't do it for free, and you have to have some type of investment on their side in order to achieve their goals, right? So I think for us, that was key and important to making that transition. And I think the next step for us was really us starting to focus on building it around the customer relationship and the customer experience. As you said, in the panel yesterday, customer experience is everything, because we all do similar, if not the same things, and it's all table stakes at the end of the day, but you have control over that end user experience.
Your security stack is a patchwork of disconnected tools. Coro is different. It replaces that complexity with one unified platform, shared visibility across your environment, and one policy layer. That's the difference.
And so, a lot of those times when you're going through that and having the ability to talk to your clients as a fellow business owner goes such a long way. I mean, to the point where you have to explain to, like, look, you wouldn't ask your clients to be able to give you whatever. So like, we have a couple construction clients that are in the asphalt and concrete bit. Like, you're not going to give a free concrete away to do your jobs on there, right? Like, that's a cost to you. Same thing as with me. I understand that we were providing this to you all along, but I have to let you know that I wasn't providing it to you. I was giving it to you. And this is a business, and I cannot give that to you. One of the flaws that we had early on, and I'll share this here, is that because we were like, all right, we want to make sure we have an all-inclusive bundle. And what we would do is, all right, well, I need an identity provider. Microsoft's cool. I'm just going to throw a business premium license in there when it was only like $8 before. And then fast forward now, you got $26 a head. You grow in scale. It's not a scalable approach. And so you're eating a lot of that on going on. And so those are one of the things where, it was educated to me, like, you cannot pay for something that runs your client's business.
And I'll tell you, like, when you start to get into clients that have maturity, they look at you differently when you discount. And here's a perfect story. I had this client that we lost, and this private equity firm, they were a client of ours. The founder of it was a mentor to me, and he kind of gave me the writing on the wall early when he said, hey man, you need to be charging market rate, because I'm gonna be honest, we're probably not gonna stay if you don't. And I kind of took that in one ear and out the other. But as that company started to scale and grow, they started to realize our immaturity through the fact that we weren't charging the right market rate, which means, guess what? We can't afford to have the best-in-class technicians, which also trickles down to we can't afford to invest in the people that are part of that team. And when they left, it was emotionally devastating for me, because a lot of us wear this business on our sleeves as if it's part of our personal identity. And I think for me, it was so devastating because I know I work hard. I know I put in the hard work, but hard work alone is not what does it. It's the value that you bring to the customer, and that value is a two-way street. So that was the moment, honestly, for me, when I was like, you know what? We're going to charge what we're worth. We may lose clients along the way, but that's okay, because we're going to be able to get the right clients at the right price.
100%. And you said it best. It's like, how do you demonstrate the value, right? Like, yeah, I have these widgets and I have all these things, but what makes you, right? What is your MSP being able to provide that niche? Are you niching down? Are you providing some type of we talked about it yesterday. Closing tickets faster is no longer the way. You have to help your clients make the best judgment in their decision making in all facets, because you're now helping them as a business advisor, not as the trusted advisor that we've been following for so long.
Outcomes over tickets all day long. I mean, that's the new landscape we live in, and we're no longer measured on the outcome of the ticket, but we're measured on the outcome that we bring on the business. And I think that's the thing. If anyone needs to learn anything, you better wise up soon, because I'm telling you, in this next iteration of what our business is about to see, you have to be prepared to step out of your comfort zone.
and perfect example, and I want to dive into a little bit more what we just mentioned, right? Is like usually people don't change unless it's either you want to change or it's forced on you to change. And obviously the force on you caused you to have to pivot. What was the mind shift or what was the pivot that you did have to make? Obviously you had corrected pricing, but what was that like internally? Like, what did you have to evaluate? What did you have to do? Because you said that when they first told you about it, it went one ear and out the other. But like when that pain happened, what was the reaction and how did you evaluate that to move forward?
Let me tell you, man, I fucking hate losing.
I'm with you.
It burns me on the core, and I obsess over it. I remember talking to my, wonderful wife, Jessica, about this, and, we got 3 young kids. She works with me. This is the last thing she needs to hear about at dinner, right? And she's like, hey, if you don't figure this out, maybe you need to go, talk to someone professionally, because you're, obsessing. But I was like, but you don't understand, it's a loss, it's an L for Enitech. And honestly, I think for me, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because it made me come back in. Because a lot of times when you're in it, you don't see it. But when you get a chance to zoom out, you see so many things that you never saw before. So I think for us, it made me become more aware on where our weaknesses were, and we really lacked operational maturity. So the next thing that we did was, we said, you know what, I think it's time for us to start that EOS journey. And I think that for us was game changing. A lot of MSPs, they've read the book Traction, and they go into thinking, like we all think, we can do everything on our own. I learned, luckily I attend enough events, and I learned from a lot of great peers in the space, such as yourself, that if you want true accountability, you have to find someone to hold you accountable, because self-accountability is hard, right? And so for us, we reached out to EOS implementer. His name's Clay Harris, really great guy. He was an MSP in the space. And what was great about him was I had that mutual respect, because I competed for him on deals where, he beat me, and I hate losing. So I got a chance and opportunity to learn from someone who had not only walked in my shoes, but went against me, who knew those individual flaws, and a person who wasn't afraid to call me out. And I think for me, it's always a journey of learning. And I think for us as business owners, we always kind of say, do this, and we kind of come with our marching orders to our team. And I felt like taking a perspective of someone who is outside of your bubble really allows for your team to buy in, because now it's not coming from the throne of Twine, it's coming from this outsider who has had success, who now is looking at your business through a totally different lens. Same thing with the power of peer groups. Why I think they're so important, because you get an opportunity to really reshape and rethink the way that you're doing business, probably a way that you would never have considered before.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny you say that, because, the ability to be able to consciously double click and zoom out in that regards is such a self-awareness that a lot of us are either aspiring to have or may have it, but sometimes you have to acknowledge it. And the fact that not only did you have this gentleman who was essentially a rival of yours, right, who knew your flaws, and during the time of the rivalry, you probably couldn't stand his ass.
Oh my God, dude! I would have when I was back in my competition days and training, I would write the number one person in my division on a mirror, and then I'd have it on a note card in my car dashboard where I could see the speed limit. I had their company name on a mirror, on a dashboard, until the point where Jessica's like, who are these people? Are you okay? What are you doing? I'm like, no, that's my goal. That's where I want to get to. Because I believe if you see it, you manifest it, right? But it's funny, you're right, because this person that was a rival became probably my biggest ally, and he's still coaching us today and helping us be better. And what's so great is he has no point. He has he's not afraid to call me out, and not to make me look bad, but to remind me and humble me that, look, I don't have all the answers, because if I did, I'd be in a different place.
Well,
right?
But the fact that you allow for that to happen, right? Because you're 100%. You took the words right out of my mouth. Being able to accept and have that piece to say, you know what, this is going to help me get better. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead, and I can respect that, because he's not doing it maliciously. He's doing it because he wants you to get better, right? And it's such a great lesson to learn, and when you piece that together. Now, you talked about EOS, right? And, for a lot of our listeners, they're under 3 million in revenue, usually less than 20 employees. What I always tell everyone is read the book, Get a Grip first before Traction, just to see if this is for you, right? And it's because a lot of people talk about a lot of operating systems, EOS being one of them. Is this something that will help you in your journey? For someone that's maybe listening and looking into EOS, when is the right time to adopt that program? Because I know that there is some opportunities where you may want to grow to it, or maybe overdue, and maybe this is something that you should
Correct.
start to take this on?
Yeah, so for me, I thought, because I'm very like, I try to be strategic, at times. And like for me, I agree. Read the book Traction or listen to the audiobook, because one, you want to get that core understanding. And then I think for each person, their journey is a little different. I think that once you're at a point where you feel stuck and you want to go ahead and form that leadership team and you're building kind of that core foundation to get you to the next level, that's probably when it's best to take it on. And here's the thing I will say about EOS, and there's so many frameworks out there in our industry, though if there's any piece of unsolicited advice I'll give, pick a framework. Every framework's different. Every framework has different outcomes. Figure it out what's best for you and your business in the moment in time of your business, because I've looked at other solutions as well. But if you're gonna do it, do it. Don't half-ass it, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna get the outcome you're looking for. So with EOS, don't get me wrong, people on my team was very reluctant. But I think that you have to buy in and believe in what you're actually trying to achieve. And I think that's the true thing that'll garner the results you're looking for, without a doubt.
Gotcha. Now, would you, and it sounds like when we were on stage yesterday that you had a lot of great things to say about EOS. Has that program is what allowed you to become a recognized player, being on the MSP 501, or was there much more than just the program itself and the team that you assembled? Is there more into the Enitech's soul of the business that had to help drive with that as well?
Yeah, so I think that, with all of us, right, we're only as good as the people we surround ourselves with. So luckily for me, I've had a great core group of people. Now, I'll tell you, as a leader, we all know those technicians and people on our supporting cast that we find to be not the strongest players on our team. But one of the things that EOS really helped me do, it helped me do two things, right? Yes, it helped me find accountability. Yes, it allowed for me to put people in the right place and the right seat to be the best version of themselves. But honestly, what it did for me was it changed my whole perspective of one of our employees. I had an employee who literally every day in my mind, he was on the chop block. He was never good enough. He always took shortcuts. I never could ever imagine myself putting him in a place of leadership. I was reluctant. My EOS implementer said, hey man, I know you want to put this one person who's remote out of the Philippines in leadership. You need to put this guy in because I think this guy will be better for it.
And you're like, huh?
I was like, we talking about the same person? Well, true story, we put this guy in leadership. He's a whole different person. Like, holding me accountable, sending me emails being like, hey man, I know you're busy, but I asked you for this on Thursday of last week. I need you to get it to me now. I don't even know who that guy is. And sometimes I always say that it's his alter ego, but I will say that it really has changed my perspective as a leader, because sometimes we do wear blinders, and I feel like I have a really good judge of character, but it was the most humbling thing. And I think because of that, we will be at another place we'll ever be in. And yes, starting that journey has changed everything for me, because now, not only, because I go to so many conferences, I understand, I'm a visionary. I understand where we're supposed to end up, but I'm not always good at communicating the plan on getting us there. And this helped us get there.
This episode is sponsored by DMello Media. Based in Chicago, we help podcasters and content creators elevate their productions with professional, on-site audio and video services. Whether you're local or on the road, partner with DMello Media for production solutions that ensure every project is captured with clarity, creativity, and professionalism.
A lot of MSP owners that are listening right now, right? They're probably around between I would even say somewhere about sub 1 million. They're either in around a couple 100,000 to maybe even under, we'll say 500,000 to 2 million, but there's probably some that are even sub to that. Going from your journey, what was the biggest differences that you went from surviving mode to where you are now? And how did you, being able to recollect those two, if you had to do it again, what would you change differently?
Oh yeah, great question. So going from 0 to 1 million is a knife fight. You're out there at war every day just trying to win. You get a client, you lose a client. You think you have strong momentum. You get a client that's 70% of your revenue. You think you're doing something great, when in reality, you're really putting yourself at a major disadvantage and you're really putting yourself with a lot of exposure. I think if I could go back in time, I think what I would have done is focused on the fundamentals and the foundation, because most of us, when we hit the ground running, we have to start making money today. Oh, no, I'm sorry, yesterday. And I think what we have to do is we have to take a time to really focus on working on the business and not in the business. And I know everybody says that cliche shit, but that shit is true. You know, moving your business forward is not completing a ticket, it's not installing a printer. It's strategizing where will you be next year. And I think once we started building a business plan and thinking about things 1, 3, 5 years down the line, it made that journey so much easier.
Yeah, I mean, and I know that those who are listening, they're probably like, well, I'm a solo guy, whatever the fuck he's talking about. But what I will tell you is that you have to look at it in that way. Because I'll even tell you, as a solopreneur, solo business owner, you have a one person staff, maybe 2. You got to take a vacation sometimes.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're with a significant other, or you're trying to for your kids, or you're just trying to for yourself to just get some alone time, you have to, or you're going to burn out, and then the whole thing is just going to crumble to pieces.
Oh, 100%.
But,
I mean, I think the biggest thing that the solopreneur should understand is perception's reality. Yeah. And even though you're a one-man show, and even though you feel like, hey, man, this shit's only on my shoulders, my clients are only mine, you have to start thinking like you're a big company, because guess what? If you don't ever start thinking like a big company, you'll never become one.
And even
Spoiler alert.
And even to that point, I even said it yesterday, was you have to build your MSP without yourself in mind, and you have to build it without you in there. And so you may be asking me, okay, that's great, Paco, but it's me, or it's me and one other person. How do I do that? This is why we're in an era with relationships. We're in a great community, whether it's ours, whether it's others. You mentioned peer groups. You know, there are people out there. If you're listening right now and you're like, I don't know anybody, go to one of the trade shows that visits your city. There are many of them. Go to a Channel Pro, go to an ASCII, go to a MSP Summit, the Channel Partners Expo. Go to where you can go to that you have the ability to have and bridge those communications and reps. And quite frankly, there will be community champions at a lot of these events that can help connect you with those people in there, because that's how we started. I was like, you know what? It took an accident on a job site for me to say, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, and I've dropped a few of these explicitives in this podcast so far, but I was like, it's not happening. And so I decided, all right, I'm not running cable anymore, not terminating ends, not climbing up on a ladder to do that shit. So I found a couple companies that were good. Hey, it's a barter, it's a relationship. We're just going to put a little bit of margin, or I'm going to sell the equipment. You take care of your quote. You know, make sure you add a little bit of a percentage in there, because if you're running credit cards, you're paying for their bill too. So you want to make sure you add that in there. That's a quick tip for you. And I'm going to repeat it again. If you are charging for a service that you're contracting or you're outsourcing, and you're adding it in to your services, make sure you up it on the margin. Don't be like, oh, I don't want to overcharge my client. You're paying the percentage fee. If you're running on a credit card or an ACH fee, you want to build that in so that you're not eating and paying for someone else's service along with the client. So
we started doing the credit card, like basically the pass-through fees. And fast forward today, Jessica took on that initiative a year ago. We increased our revenue by $30,000.
Oh yeah, it's sickening, and the amount of, like, you just think it's like, oh, it's a couple percent. Yeah, literally, I was like, I built it into the rate, but it's oh my god, it's sickening on how much money you lose. Now, granted, now we have a great controller over at Summit who handles all of the small businesses. Lindsay, shout out to you for fixing our books every day and figuring out all that shit and how we do it right. And so she's been able to actually, hey, look, you're losing money here. You have to do these things here. You have to be able to do those types there, right? And these are things I know, right? But I'm just like, I'll get to it. And then you get to it, it's 18 months later. Like, it's you run into such a run. Now, again, the last 8 months have been a whole different whirlwind for me, so it's a whole different conversation, which I don't even know if I've done a podcast about that, but stay tuned. But the point of me in this ramble is that you have to ensure that you, A, look at some of these things, but 2, going back to what I said, if it's just you have to build allies, you have to build partners, you have to build, another MSP that you may have a good rapport with and have conversations with. Maybe they can take over if you have synergies. Are you guys running the same, or same gals and guys are running the same PSA, the same RMM, same systems, same security practices? These are great things to talk about and meet and network. That's the point of these events. It's not to go ahead and go to a show and here to get the education. Yeah, that's great. That's a plus. It's the hallway. It's the phrase that Rick Smith always makes fun of me. It's where the magic happens. It's the hallway. It's the conversation.
Absolutely.
That you see here.
And it's building the meaningful relationships. I've won more deals with high-level clients based on the strategic partnerships of MSPs I formed with out of state. That's why I can do business out of state. And I'm transparent about it. I say, hey, these are like-minded partners. I'm a part of a big MSP network that allows for me to have a national reach, even though we don't have an employee in every state. Right. And I think that is more understandable in today's market than it's ever been before. And just kind of playing off of what you were saying earlier, if you're not focused on net profitability day one, it's very hard to wrangle it in later. And as you know, you're going through, you're making acquisitions. And when you're looking at that from a spreadsheet lens, it's a whole different thing. You're leaving money on the table. And honestly, those discounts you're giving, you're doing a disservice to yourself and your family. You're not protecting the revenue. You're really honestly giving it away.
Literally. And it's such a point where like it's such a mental shift that you have to change. And I get it. We're trying to help our clients. We're trying to be there for them. But again, it's a disservice to them when you do have to make the adjustment because you're forced to make that adjustment. And then having the client to be able to speak to that as well. You mentioned partner network, and I think that's such a great way to put it on being able to bridge and partner. I mean, we are literally being able to bid on the ability to do that in the past because we had the operations and pieces where we had someone we trusted. We had someone to, even down to the point where if I'm out doing something from here back in the early days, my team could go ahead and call Rick. Someone can go ahead and call a couple of the MSPs that we've partnered with just so they can pick their brain. Hey, I'm in front of this switch and I don't know what's going on. How do I identify this thing? Press the button. Oh, it's lighting up. Hey, cool, boom. There's things like that are so helpful, but then now I don't have to worry about being the single point of failure, the bottleneck for that MSP, or for that transaction, that ability for that job to run the MSP as I should. But Antwine, in regards to, sitting here, right, you built a strong team, key people in operations and finance, right? You've mentioned your people what you do and you invest in your people and your leadership style. Have you noticed a shift over the years in your leadership style? Because you even mentioned that, hey, I'm usually a good person that can judge character. By being able to go through that, has your leadership style changed or has it been enhanced to how you handle things?
It's both. So it's funny because, oh man, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but I'm pretty tough to work with or to work for, right? Because I have very high standards, I'm very critical, and I have no problem in telling you when you've messed up. And it's only because that is how, I kind of came up in the system. And it's all about, being able to take on that criticism. But what I had to understand is that especially with like these different generations of employees, not everybody is gonna be fired up when you're beating them down or when you're yelling at them or you're trying to call yourself motivating them. Each person has different things that brings the best version out of themselves. So one of the things that I've had to learn is I have to be more patient. Maybe the 3 kids under 5 is kind of attributed to this as well. But one of the things I've had to learn is I have to be more patient and I have to be understanding and I have to be able to see things not from the perspective of if Antwine did it, but from the perspective of if this person did it. And I think that it's made me a better leader, but it's also made people probably respect me more and understand the burden that I take on as the owner, that the stress that I have. And I think it's made people buy in more because they understand that at the end of the day, I'm on your team. We're trying to achieve the same goal, which is providing high quality IT services to customers. And I think that once you get aligned on that, the rest becomes easy.
Yeah, it's all about following the vision and mission, right? And being able to find people that fit that culture and understand that you're going to go to bat for them and they're going to go to bat for you as much as you. And that's protecting the brand and representing the brand. You had said something, and we talked about it yesterday in the stage where, employee experience drives client experience. And I'm a huge proponent of that. But you even said to that point, right, there's a key piece to be able to say, all right, I'm looking at this. I'm trying to understand how did this sandwich end up on my desk? Yep. And it's one of those, right, I was taught that I was like, all right, well, it's here. But you got to understand what that sandwich is. How did it get assembled? How did it get pieced together? There was a lot of work that had to go into that sandwich to be able to be in them. How did it get to my desk from there? And as you start to unravel and piece that, and not in your perspective, but of the perspective of how it got there, you really be able to drive a lot of conversations. And you mentioned, obviously, there's the generational gaps and being able to understand that, like you said, I'm in the same way. Like I was very much grit the teeth. Here's what you do. Work hard. This is what you got to do. You got to earn your way. And, it's at a point now where there's a lot of different conversations around that. And how do you adhere to make sure you get the productivity and the buy-in as much as possible and being able to adhere and learn that. And so, it takes a lot of great team members and people to hold you.
You're only as good as people you surround yourself with. 100%. I'll say it every day, And I think also, like, for us, it's really about building good culture, right? And culture isn't flashback casual Fridays, or having a bunch, going to play top golf and leaving work early. It's about getting people to believe in one another. So one of the things I always say is, no one works for me, everybody works with me. And one of the things that I'm truly a big believer in, it's not about what can you do for Enitech, what can Enitech do for you in your professional journey, because people are going to grow professionally and they're going to leave companies and they're going to find opportunities that make more sense for them and their families. And if I can be a part of that journey, that is equally rewarding than anything else I can do.
It's funny. I heard a phrase a couple years ago that true success is not about the profit. True success is not about the accolades. True success to a business owner is when your employees, your staff members that work with you, and again, I agree with that 100%, care about the business as if they own the business too.
100%. That is everybody at Enitech. They treat it like it's their own business. They treat that P&L like it's their own P&L. And for that, I can't put a dollar numerical value on it. And I mean, that is the thing and to be honest, that's the magic. If there's anything that's magical, that is the magic.
For MSPs, growth has a ceiling, not because of talent, but because traditional security stacks force per vendor specialization. Every new rooftop adds more configuration complexity. That model does not scale. Coro changes that. We are a native platform, not a patchwork of acquired tools. Instead of disconnected products operating in silos, Coro unifies network, cloud app, email, endpoint, data protection, and security awareness training in one platform with shared context across the entire environment. One data model, one unified workflow, one repeatable deployment model across your full client base. Coro absorbs the complexity that would otherwise require more engineers. With 95% of routine security events resolved automatically, your team can focus on higher value work instead of tool management. The result is simple: lower delivery costs, stronger margins, and scale that works in your favor. Stop managing tools, start scaling your practice. Visit coro.net/partners.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that to that point. Being able to have that ability and have that team that you can relate to for that is such a big thing. One last question before we go into the rapid fire piece here. We're sitting here in 2026, right? You're reflecting on about 13 plus years in business, and what would be the advice that you would give your younger self as they are just running their journey, not so much starting Enitech, but just as a leader, what you've contributed to the space, where you've come from to where you are now. And I've been doing a lot of taking inventory lately because, and I believe this, we're probably cut from the same cloth, where we go in so many different directions, and our decision making is what's next. And we never get the chance to celebrate the small wins, the big wins, and taking inventory of now and being present. And it's a huge fight that I have with my wife, in being present. And it's a hard thing for me to stay in touch, but kind of looking back to from then to now, what would be that advice that you have for back then?
So I'll give you kind of like two things. So one of my really good friends who's an MSP, I'm 42, so he's probably like 46, so he's pretty young. He had some major health complications and a scare, to the point where it almost wiped out his business. And he went in the hospital. Luckily, he had good team members. I even offered to be kind of part of that relief with my MSP. But the one thing that I learned is, whether you're here, dead or gone, those customers are going to move on. So with that said, you have to put value around your time, and you have to truly value yourself. And one of the things that we're quick to do is we're quick to sacrifice the time. We're quick to miss that, our loved ones, basketball game or sporting event, because we think in the moment that client is the most important thing. And honestly, it's not. It's your health and it's your family first. Because if those two things are not in the best places they can be, you can't provide the best version or quality of service that you're trying to achieve. And that's a fact. And like, one of the things that I never put a dollar value on was my time, because when I started this business, I was 27. I didn't have any kids. I wasn't married. So for me, my key differentiator, or my disruptor, was my infinite time. Well, as you get older and as you start to live a little life, that amount of time diminishes exponentially. So you have to build a system in place that's scalable, that protects your time, but making sure that you're getting the maximum value of that time. And that's what's important.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, being able to provide value is so much different when you have to understand your value to where you're contributing, because again, you don't want to provide diminished value because you just can't do it, because you it's something I always say, your mind can want to go as many places as possible. Your body will tell you when you cannot go no more, and it will shut that down. And I have been many a times where that has happened. So, and so we have a new thing that we do. We do a rapid fire at the end. So it'll be a couple quick questions. Hopefully you go. One tool or resource that helped you scale the most in the early days.
Okay, so for me, like I said, perception's reality. I think the resource that helped me scale the quickest was partnering with a good marketing agency, because at the end of the day, if you're not building a brand, your business is going to grow slowly. So for us, we spent really honestly all of our dollars in marketing. We heavily vested in it. And that was how we fueled the fire to have initial quick growth.
The biggest mistake that you made while growing?
Oh man, and I still make this mistake today. Letting clients get behind on billing and not getting my arms around it early, because at the end of the day, yes, we are relationship driven and we care about those relationships. But at the end of the day, if you don't pay your internet bill or you don't pay your beloved vendor bill, no matter how much or how great they may think you are, they will shut your shit down. So I'm not saying you need to go out there and start cutting services, but have those difficult conversations on the front end when they get behind, because it is really hard to turn that tide when they're 50, 100 grand behind.
I was going to say 100%. I mean, for those that, for us, if a vendor didn't bill us for several months and all of a sudden, hey, you owed for these back bills, you're going to be pretty pissed. Yep. So like, don't let it get to that point. Be on top of it. And then last one is, what's the one thing that you're focused on right now for Enitech to get to the next level?
AI, all day, every day. And I know a lot of us think that's a marketing buzzword. It's not. The shit is real. And I think for us, what we are going to be focused on is not only how can we take AI internally and be able to optimize our business, but how do we take our employees and help them grow professionally because of AI? Because I do believe that we're going to be pivoting into a universe where you're going to have to do more with less. And not only are you going to have to be that trusted business outcome advisor, but you are going to have to lead on this AI forefront, because guess what? I assure you, your clients are already in there. And as I've heard, is like 9 out of 10 businesses are already using it, AI in some form, and they're not even aware of it. So that is the opportunity. This is the Wild West. One-man MSP, 100 million MSP, doesn't matter. The playing field right now is equal. So take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah, it's to a point where even in the PAX8 Pulse report that I just had Ryan Walsh on not so long ago, he mentioned in that report that small businesses right now that they've interviewed 400 SMBs, 67% of them were running AI in their business. And there was an opportunity where the MSP probably wasn't involved in that adoption. And so that's just a piece that you just got to pay attention to for sure. But Antwine, this was great. To run it back, we have to do a three-peat and get this going. But for anyone that is tuning in, they want to chat with you, talk a little bit more about either EOS, how you kind of came up in the early days, or just where you're at right now. What's the best way for them to connect with you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Antwine, Antwine Jackson, Mr. Jackson if you're nasty. I'm always available. But feel free to reach out. I love talking shop, and I'm here to help anybody that wants to grow.
Well, that's why I appreciate you coming out here, and then appreciate all of you joining us in this fun conversation. I always love being able to talk to my good friend here. Tune in every week over at MSP Unplugged. We have our video podcast, youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you can be notified when a new episode comes through. We're also on all of your favorite podcatcher apps. So head over to mspunplugged.com again. Click on any one of those podcatcher apps that's most important to you. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, to name a few. And don't forget about TechCon Unplugged. We're back September 17th and 19th back in Chicago. More details, agenda will be coming out here soon. Get your early bird ticket, head over to techconunplugged.com. And from Antwine, myself here, We appreciate you again tuning in, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.